pirate. The other is crazy. So you better warp to the safe spot!
Welcome back, Capsuleer, let's go.
Warp to the safe spot! Warp to the safe spot!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of The Safe Spot. I'm your host, Rixx Javix, and with me tonight is my good Canadian friend.
Crazy Connects. Good to be here. How are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just doing fantastic. Living in a dream paradise here in the United States of America. Never know what's going to happen next. Always being surprised. You know how it is. And looking forward to a big blue wave of tsunami of taking over and putting things right. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. The good thing is, at least you've got, an American on that side of the border with a Canadian on this side of the border that, get along very nicely, have a lot of fun talking to each other and, negotiations.
I love my Canadian friends. I have quite a few. And you know what? I spent a good portion of this weekend listening to your PM talk about the breakdown of trade negotiations, and I was quite proud of him for standing up and I agreed, Canada's awesome. And I've always had a great deal of respect for Canadians and for your history and, a lot of the great stories of heroism and the wars and all yada yada yada. Never had any problems with Canada.
Exactly. We just gotta hang on for a few more years, and the
hopefully, we get a chance to
smooth out. Yeah. So,
we batted around a few ideas, Crazy and I, about what to talk about. I had, this week I wrote a very truthful and probably a little hurtful blog post because I had spent a few days just getting attacked constantly. It seems to be accelerating a little bit with where I blow somebody up and then I get an angry convo request. The last one just pushed me over the edge. It was like, why did you kill me? And I just ended up writing a whole blog post about it. But
it was a good heart.
Truthful. It was truthful, right?
Truthful, exactly. Nothing.
It wasn't mean. I hope it wasn't
nothing
mean.
Below the belt, nothing mean, exactly. So I think maybe I don't know. Maybe it's with the times. People are a bit more sort of
maybe
sensitive and overreactive to things that this is Eve. What's happening to these folks and getting blown up is part of that. And don't make a fuss about it. Learn from it, move on, and enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it's no fun when it happens to you. We know that. And it isn't, no matter how long you've played. I lost the ship today. I knew I was going to lose it. And I actually kind of sacrificed it to save a core mate. But even with that, it's like, oh, man, I really like that ship. So no matter how long you've been playing, it's like, it just sucks to lose. But nobody likes that.
Of the game. It's part of playing the game. It's part of Eve life.
Right, but that's not really a subject worth chewing on, I think, for a whole whatever. So we kind of landed on a few things have happened, and this topic keeps coming up. I know I get accused, mainly by people who hate me, of being an AI promoter and an AI spammer, or whatever they call it, a slop artist, yada, et cetera, et cetera. And I know Crazy just had a little run-in with that on Reddit when he tried to post a piece of fiction that he had written, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got into sort of a tsunami of AI slop, and this is, did you write this and did you make the image and whatnot? And of course, I mean, the image was completely made up for sure.
And quite obviously, too. No slander. It was a nice image, but it was obviously AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't deny any of that.
No.
And then people were saying, well, if that's AI, then the article's fully AI. And if you didn't write it, why should I write it? And
right.
I actually wrote something up earlier today, I believe. Yeah, today. Crazy weekend here. So basically, in which I explained sort of my process of writing these days, which is to leverage AI in a number of ways, but mainly as sort of part of the creative process. So if you want the full details, go see the article. But
They're really
short
good.
story
Highly
is,
recommend.
yeah, thank you. Short story is, I come up with all the ideas and then I go back and forth with either ChatGPT or Claude and hash out some details. I'll use Claude for sort of my editor, so it can look at the short story that I've put together working with ChatGPT and give me some feedback as to where it's weak and whatnot. And then I'll go back and I'll re-edit that. And, it's a whole process. It's not instantaneous. It's not, like a shitty prompt that you put together and then, or a very detailed prompt for that matter, that you put together and you get a final story. You just go copy and paste. You haven't read a word of it. Not at all. It's far from that. I was a bit of, taken aback by how quickly the sort of AI slop. And I don't think that, and I'm not going to say this lightly, but I don't think those folks who just drop that truly understand what AI slop is. Because from what I was sort of understanding of their sort of pushback was that because I've used AI to create, as part of my creative process, then automatically it's slop. Whereas technically the definition of AI slop is, poorly created content that's of poor quality, no insight, story lacks anything and whatnot,
right.
Or the guide or whatever is created using AI as a supportive tool. That's, AI slop when it has no value. But when there's a work in progress and a working relationship with these tools, and the output is better than what you could have done in a shorter amount of time, then I think if there's value, if the story is enjoyable, if the article or the art is enjoyable, then that may be, AI may have had taken a part in the creation of it, but I don't think I would call that AI slop. Now, there is a difference between generative AI, right, and then LLM AI that you're using like an editor, like chatbot AI, right? And so I can understand where there's a line, and there is for me too, where I really try to stay away from anything that's generative because, well, for a lot of reasons. Obviously, because I don't agree with all the artists that got ripped off, the entire history of mankind's art that got fed into a giant language database and without anybody's approval or permission or anything else. And then, so there's an ethical question there right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And then now, you hear about the books they're feeding into it and everything, which has its own, and the way they're doing it, right? And it's not like that's creating a library that's publicly accessible, digitally, which would be awesome, because I'm sure a lot of those books have never been digitized. If they're just pulling old books out of attics, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of those have never been digitally made digitally available. So that would be like a public service, almost in a way. But it's not what they're doing.
No, they're not doing that at all. They're just feeding it into the LLM so that it just has more of a breath.
Yeah.
That is, I can understand the difference between, using generative and then using it as an editor. My wife works across from me every day, and she's a software consultant, and she works with Copilot, with Claude, with ChatGPT on SharePoint projects. There's no choice whether or not to do it. It's a service her company sells. So she's become, over the last 2 years or 2.5 years, an expert. She's taken certified classes, become certified in certain areas of it, because this is a business execution for software development, for software consulting, for, mass libraries of huge amounts of data for clients all over the world. And that AI is integrated into all of those services. So there's no opting out of that. It's just become a part of our lives, as far as the business services go. Yeah, so
it improves.
It improves everything. It's amazing. I've seen the things that she can do with it. It's insane. She'll invite me over. Look at this. And it really is. And I think when I see that kind of stuff, the business process, I think, gosh, I wish I had had this when I had my agency, because, I was spending three, weekends, whole weekends, on my own, writing proposals and putting reports together and building these really beautiful, big 47-page documents, with images and charts and everything, all by hand. And now it's like, you can put all this data together and just feed it to one of these AIs, and they can chew out, whatever you want them to, whatever you tell them to, and organize this data, organize these plans, and it's just amazing and beautiful. Yeah. And why would you not want that to happen, right? Because that was horrible. It's horrible to have to do that for 8 hours or 12 hours. As a human being, when they can do it for you, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, it still necessitates human gatekeeping and human review at all throughout the stages of that, and also at the end of it.
Absolutely.
Like the output needs to be reviewed to make sure that
none of that would mean anything. It would be completely meaningless and completely useless if it wasn't for the fact that she's an expert at what she does. That she knows that system backwards and forwards, that she's spent her entire career working out on that, and that she's in control of it, right? So the input and the output are going right through her. So, it's not AI is not doing her job for her, it's making her better at her job.
Faster, more efficient. And I think that's the big difference. And I'd like to sort of like how the Eve community perceives that, because I think there's some good points as to, like why there's this sort of pushback on anything AI and how they see that. And there's a couple of things that I want to discuss with you, but just to sort of finish off on that, on working with AI and using it in a general sense, is the difference between AI generated and AI assisted work, or AI assisted creative work. And, in my case, where using content that's out there, using YouTube videos where it's a guide on doing, planetary interactions or setting up a good fit for a Merlin and whatnot. That video format could last 15, 20, 30 minutes. And sometimes having that in a written guide is that much more helpful if you're in the middle of something and you quickly want to scan for some information. So using those and working with AI and vetting and proofing and editing and making sure that what is being outputted is accurate. We all know about, Aura GPT, or what's the official name of guidance, Aura guidance? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah,
I don't use it.
But anyways, that sort of proofing, that's sort of human editing. If the guide is helpful, if the guide is useful, and when you do that, of course, you have to, mention the author and where you got that. And that's something that I do every time that I put these guides together, is to reference back to the video, reference back to the YouTuber that did that, link back to their channel, to their video, so that they get more subscribers and whatnot. But, AI was used in putting all of this together. So I think that's an important difference between just, simply AI generated, simple prompt, boom, copy, paste. No human was involved. And then you end up with, AI slop, as people are sort of
right. We've certainly seen a lot of it, and I think we all know it when we see it. A lot of untalented people sitting in front of their computers for the last 3 or 4 years have been constant. I mean, just one example out of millions. There's a trend on Twitter, or X, has been for 3 or 4 years. You'll see these clips and people will be like, oh, I did this in 5 minutes on such and such a platform. Hollywood is toast. Hollywood's done. Now look at what I was able to do. While that may be true down the road, 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's not true now, because most of that stuff's being done by talentless, directorless, writerless people who are just sitting down and writing prompts into something that they don't know a thing about. You can tell they're terrible. It shows they're terrible. I watched some of these like AI Star Wars things or AI short films or any number of these examples, and honestly, most of them are absolutely terrible, and that feels like slop. I don't know that eliminates, because I have seen a few instances recently, especially, where something truly beautiful has been made, and I'm like, I don't even know how you did that, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous and moving and impactful. And I'm guessing that at some point there was some true person sitting there and working on that.
Yeah, usually there always is, right? Like even if AI is involved in some way, if the output is of good quality, because you still need that individual who knows what he's talking about, who knows what a good article, video, story is, to sort of what's good from what's not.
Well, it's like I used to get you're just using a computer. My ex-wife was big on this one. Always, you're not a true artist. You just use a computer. Like there was some magic button that I push and it goes, hey, look, art. And that's not what happened. Just because I use Photoshop or I used Illustrator or I use Wacom tablets or I have a giant Wacom screen, pressure sensitive one next to my desk, or any of the other tools that I used, those are just tools. Yeah. I still have to create the art myself. That's a line too, right? That I would never cross using generative AI to do any art. I have discovered a few ways in which it can help with my art. Nothing serious, but it has been kind of helpful in some ways. There was a piece of art I was working on that I could not find a good reference for a certain thing that I wanted, but I found like 15 images of it. It just wasn't the part of it that I needed. And so I just asked Firefly, I'm like, here's 15 images of this thing. Can you render this out at this angle? And I described exactly what angle I wanted it rendered out at, and it did it. It was terrible. It didn't look great, but I didn't need it to. I just needed it so I could see it. Then I could create art in the piece that I was doing, but I just needed that reference. Like, what does this look like at this angle,
I mean, one of the great things that it does is the research, right? When you're researching for topics on any topic, but you still have to sort of guide it as to what you're trying to
absolutely
looking for and do and whatnot. And
depending on who you listen to, I mean, up to 40% of the time it's wrong, so exactly. you have to know something about what you're asking it about to understand when it gets it wrong, right?
So speaking of understanding, what's good and what's not, let's go back to Aura GPT, or as it's officially known, it's Aura Guidance. I came across it.
Okay.
Like right now, I know that it's not deployed across every account within Eve. So only some people have it, and some people can sort of have these conversations. And from what we hear, sometimes the answers are a bit, like gibberish, or, what people call hallucinations, what I prefer to call confabulations.
Right. Oh, nice.
Where the answer is completely off. And if you do what Aura tells you to do, or Aura Guidance tells you to do, you'll end up potted or whatnot, or it won't work. So I can understand, that issue, where if a new player has that access to Aura Guidance and starts asking questions and gets all the wrong answers, or too many of those bad answers, incorrect answers, and then doesn't turn to the community, that it can sort of put them off, and he or she decides to leave the game because of that. So you got to be careful with that, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, a lot of people, from what I've sort of researched and looked up, is a lot of people feel, and I think there's a good point here, is that if you put that in game, and every question that you have about every fit, you don't get through the community, you don't get to geez, I really gotta, somebody told me that I needed to get into a corp because I'll get all the, much more support, and I'll get answers to the questions that I have and whatnot. If you're getting all the right answers from an Aura Guidance, and you don't need to group up with folks within the community and corporations, there's a huge aspect of the game that is lost in this process. And
Absolutely.
I don't
Yes.
think that's not a benefit. So whatever, and I think they've hinted at that, but Fenris needs to sort of improve Aura guidance up to a certain point. And there's a moment where you've asked enough questions about this and that, or the answers would probably be better handled by someone with an Eve University or Corp, and it can say something to the effect of, listen, what you're trying to do is, you seem to be interested in trading. There's a bunch of, great trading corporations within your region. Here's a link, and it pops a link of all the sort of, it does the search for that corporation for you. And then it says, go ahead and apply to the one that seems best to fit your interest and, your time zone and whatnot. And then off you go. And you're no longer relying on Aura guidance. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. I think that the danger of, and we already see it with third-party tools. There's almost every week now I'm seeing a new third-party tool that does this or does that, or helps you with trade, or helps you with finding missions, or doing PI, or any number of things. There always seems to be somebody who's like, okay, I just built this thing, and you guys can come and check it out. And I'm sure there's probably a bunch of those that I don't even know about that pass under the radar, but it seems like there's just an incredible amount of that going on too. I think that the danger really is that, it could take away from what makes Eve sticky, right? And just turn it in. I don't know. I mean, and maybe this is a part of the problem that we're going to have, that we have with all things, right? With school, with university, with learning, with doing business or whatever. If you turn too much of it over to AI, where's the line for each of those moments, right? Where's the line when it's writing term papers or helping you with your homework? Where's the line? Where's the line in the game where too much information is taking away from what makes Eve special, or too much automation within the game? So, like, you've got all these bots. What if AI kicks it up a notch and it becomes something like a plague, and there's all these, oh my gosh,
these players. I mean, right now, like, there's, multi-boxing is one thing.
Right.
There's an extent where it just doesn't become a benefit to the game, to the universe, to the community. And so you've got to, tread really carefully here, and you lose a lot of that human agency, right?
Were you around when they kind of turned that on with NPCs, and NPCs ended up getting together and going and attacking nullsec stations, and they had to turn it off. They had to turn it way down or turn it off. I don't remember all the details. This is a few years back. But yeah, their NPCs were showing up and attacking player structures in nullsec, and of course that didn't make anybody happy.
Yeah,
but that was an early oops on. I don't know if that was full AI or anything, but it was an automated kind of make NPCs more intelligent.
Yeah. So speaking of like oops moments and that sort of thing, that's something that throughout CCP's history, and now Fenris' history, developing and working on Eve for the last 20 plus years, 23 officially, right, since it's launched. There's been a lot of moments where this shiny new toy, blockchain, or walk-in stations, and like they would go bananas. They'd focus on that, and then some key aspects of the game were being neglected. Issues, bugs.
Don't forget virtual reality. That was a big one.
Well, yeah, exactly. So some people are, saying with good reason that, well, AI and this whole thing with DeepMind is just that shiny new toy in Fenris's toolbox, and they've sort of dropped everything and focused on that. So that's another sort of negative as to let's tread carefully here with this AI thing. Let's not go bananas and neglect some of the core important aspects of.
It's important, I think, to that we understand where we are None of that has happened yet, and it certainly could. Obviously, I mean, we've had examples of that in the past, but where we are right now is that Eve really has nothing. They've basically taken an instance of Eve and they're running it on a separate thing, and DeepMind is using that instance to just run a million billion scenarios, right? It's learning about,
Right.
and some of the things that it's learning are quite exciting, I think. It hasn't had experience with games that don't have an ending, which I think is kind of an interesting way to look at it. Games typically have step, 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 and this gets you to a victory, right? And Eve doesn't come with that at all. Yep. So it's an ongoing, never-ending thing. And
it's not Pong, it's not chess.
Right. That's intriguing too. And so it hasn't really. It's just research, really, at this point. And it may only ever be that, right? I don't know. So what happens after that, I don't know. I don't think anybody really does. I think it's just a partnership at this point of basically research, allowing it to learn from the model, and that may be all it ever is. But I think even in a wider sense, AI is going to infiltrate Eve. It's inevitable. It's infiltrating everything else. Just like you and I said earlier when we were off microphone, it's important to have regulations, and we've kind of advocated that to the technology companies, which is just asinine in my opinion. But
it's a free for all right now, and we need
but I think the same thing is true. The things is true in Eve. We need to have some guardrails set up and some expectations about what we're going to allow, what we're not going to allow it to do once it does get in there. No, it's already gotten in there. So how do we protect Eve and what makes it special from it too much, right?
Yeah.
Where are the lines?
So one last point before, I'd like to switch to a more positive sort of aspect. So considering that, we've worked out all the kinks and whatnot, what would Eve look like if AI was done right? So just before we do that, because there's one thing which I think is dangerous, and it's sort of taking Aura guidance to, push it way, way too much so that it removes all the friction points within Eve,
right,
and removes all the doubts. And it basically tells you at every move, based on what you've just done, what you've acquired in terms of loot, what skills you've trained, this is the optimal next step. And basically, you're just a peon executing what it tells you to do. Should be your best move.
But if we're smart, it can do some of that and help you. But it can also, and I don't see why this would not be part of the plan, it can also manipulate you in a certain way to create those friction points and keep them vitally alive, right? Without your knowledge. Because it shouldn't always be on your side. It should, in some insidious ways, in some subtle ways, in some manipulative ways, it should be on the side of New Eden, right? It should be on the side of, hey, let's make this a really exciting game, and I'm going to, help you to a certain point, but I'm also going to kind of, set this up so that this game remains exciting. And
because doing that's a good point. Because doing that really well would mean that, and I'm just thinking here of Asimov's laws of robotics.
Right.
What if the top law for whatever AI systems gets implemented within Tranquility, than the actual game, where people are, playing and paying and spending, hundreds of hours and whatnot, thousands of hours, is what if its end goal was, my goal is to make this game and playing the game and being in the game as enjoyable or addictive. And then I know we can easily get into, the other end of that issue, but make it as interesting and as fun so that you keep coming back, you keep playing, you keep telling your friends, you got to do this. This is fantastic. It's hard, it's complex, it's definitely complicated, but you'll get a kick out of it. If that was its, main law 0 or law 1, then that would be a huge benefit, right? Explaining the complicated, but allowing for the complex to still be there. And
I think I would say it a different way to avoid all the controversial things that you just said, and help you.
Please do so.
Is that I would remove the word
I'm just
addiction.
thinking out loud here, folks.
Yeah. But I think you have the right idea, but I think I would word it in a more Declaration of Independence way, where the prime directive is to maintain the integrity, the quality, and the enjoyability of New Eden for the greater good, not the individual player.
Ooh,
But
that's exactly what I said.
It is, but it's just and just more flowery Declaration of Independence wording, right?
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is it boils down to AI should create less or allow for less friction when it goes against the enjoyment of the game, but it creates more depth. And because of that, because you're keeping human players in the game, the human agency is still most important thing, and the ability for us to enjoy the game.
What's the Spock rule? What's the Spock rule? The lives of the many outweigh the lives. I can't remember exactly how he said it.
Of the one or something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Right. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. I think that's really pretty much it, right? Because it's got to maintain its integrity as a game for everybody.
Yep.
And so if I ask it, I said, hey, Aurora, how do I min-max my way to domination of nullsec and 12 easy steps? And it's going to not be able to do that because, don't know that you're ready, or, I'm going to help you to get into your next ship. But, this big stuff, that's going to take some time, dude.
Yeah. Or it gives you an honest answer saying, to each their own way of playing the game. You might not find, these steps useful, enjoyable, and whatnot. So instead, I'm going to give you, some foundational advice that you can apply and then use as you see fit.
Yeah. So let's get to the positive stuff, because I do actually believe there's quite a few areas of Eve that could be really astronomically improved almost instantaneously by some judicious use of AI.
Yeah. And some of those, actually, you know what? Go ahead. Go first, since you've for the past 20
years, we've been fighting a never-ending battle of understanding the data. So, whether it was CCP Ghost telling us how new players work, how things work, interpreting the data. And I know that there's a lot of people at CCP or at Fenris now who are constantly maintaining and doing the data work. But I think AI right there, understanding and grasping the totality of 22 years of data, 23 years of data now, would be a huge assistance. And probably already is. I don't know all the ins and outs of what they're doing, but I'm guessing they're using AI to some degree or another to do that already, but they should be, because I think that instantaneously helps, right?
Yeah. I mean, the amount of data that Eve produces in a day,
insane. It's got to be insane.
And what is it, like 290 some months that it's been going? It's just it boggles the mind, and no human being could ever consume, digest, and synthesize and leverage all of that data by him or herself.
So and if you're doing that, then it seems like, how do I make the Comet better, or does the Condor need an extra mid slot? Those kinds of questions become maybe easier to answer.
Yeah.
And maybe what are some of the holes in our nullsec policy? Help me better understand how wormholes work in the greater scheme of Eve, and what kind of suggestions could we do to make them more exciting and more accessible for more players?
Have you noticed any imbalances and, this dynamic, play dynamic where
Right,
there's a
right.
faction that has
Maybe
more
too much
advantages and
power.
whatnot? Yeah.
Right, right.
Or, I mean, remember that, quite often Fenris will release a patch and then they think, QA has done a good job. And,
Right, right, right.
and this is not to say QA doesn't do a good job, but, like 23 years of code, good luck with doing a QA that covers everything. Then you put in the human element in the players, and then the real stuff happens.
Right.
And
Yeah.
something they noticed that something got broke, got imbalanced. There was an exploit due to this recent expansion or patch. So definitely AI could sort of test those, the Google DeepMind to say, okay, you want to change this? This is what you want to deploy. Okay, let's simulate what 6 months of this, 1,000 times, 10,000 times could look like, and is what breaks, what needs to be sort of tweaked so that it doesn't get to this situation. Is definitely a huge plus for the development of the game.
Absolutely. I think so. And I think that, maybe we're already on the path to that, but, hunting bugs, doing QA, understanding ship balancing,
The code of the game,
the code itself, right? And,
oh my God.
Hey, Claude, how do I find passcode and how do I turn it off without destroying the game? That's maybe one of the first things I'd ask Claude.
Bad. Go ahead.
But I also think too that so this one's one that I've advocated actually for a long time, is all the stuff that goes on behind the players in the game, actually in the game. And what I mean is, and this has gotten better over the years. If you stand outside, if you're sitting outside a station now, you'll notice there's NPCs undocking and docking in your NPC station, right? And that's pretty cool. They do stuff. Sometimes you can fly into a belt and there's like a whole fleet of NPC guys out there mining and doing stuff. I think that's freaking fantastic. I would love to see even more of that, like background stuff. It doesn't impact me or impact Capsuleers necessarily, but it just brings the universe to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there could be a lot more of that and more like, and maybe, more in high sec, less in low, less in null, however we want to set it up. Just life in general to the universe, I think that can be pretty cool.
Yeah,
and if all that's AI driven,
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it could improve PvE. So imagine, your different level, mission levels where, depending on your level, the NPCs react in the moment to what you're doing in a more intelligent way, in the way that a real pirate would, and not just going through a script and it repeats and repeats and rinse and repeat every time you do that level 1 mission type of thing.
Well,
where it learns.
I think that one of the most boring parts I always hear is that people, have figured out the dungeon, right? And so this is how I min-max this. This is the ship I use. This is how I max out this 5 room or whatever. It's a 510 or whatever. What if we're mixing those up more? What if the rooms aren't always predictable? What if they're set up in a different way sometimes, or the number of NPCs changes, or the tactics they use? I mean, it just seems to be an infinite amount of ways in which you can not only complicate things, but also make them more interesting and more dynamic.
Yep.
Even just on a regular basis, even just minorly, not even drastically, but yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah. And then there's one thing that we don't necessarily, us able-bodied individuals that, are lucky to be able to use eyes, ears, hands to play the game. Some EVE players, some gamers have physical disabilities that prevents them from enjoying the game.
Absolutely.
We do.
Yeah.
So what if there was a way for DeepMind or any other AI to sort of look at the game, look at those, folks with these disabilities, and how could we develop a way to interact and engage with the game that makes the game as enjoyable for them as it is for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that you're opening that up to a whole
I
new
love that idea.
audience or more
Yeah, I love
of
that
it.
idea.
So that's something that is fantastic when they have and they dedicate the time to do that. But there needs to be, in my opinion, there needs to be more of that. And that's one way where AI, I think, could really better understand the game, the mechanics, how it's played, how it could do that with folks with, accessibility issues and whatnot. So
Fantastic. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, well, I 100%. And I think in general, right, just in general, using computers, all the accessibility issues all need to be addressed. I think AI has a potential to be hugely beneficial in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And not just in Eve, at every level.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just there are so many. There's so many negative things about AI, but there's also so many positives. Like some of these the cancer breakthroughs that we're having, or that are potentially on the horizon. Just I don't know if it was Merck or one of the other big pharmas are in third phase testing now of a vaccine for skin cancer, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's a pretty big deal, right?
Absolutely. Creative ways of finding solutions that have sort of, puzzled us, and being creative in combinations of molecules and remedies and vaccines and whatnot. So absolutely. Question for you. Let's speed, warp to 5 years from now, 10 years from now. AI has been deployed within New Eden. Let's look at two scenarios. It's going extremely well, and it created havoc, and there were issues. So pick the one that you want to imagine, and let us know what that looks like. For you, Rixx, what would that look like? It's done.
I'd like to stay positive and optimistic, and I'll leave out all the concerns about AI destroying our water supply or taking all of our power, or that all of us are going to simply become lifelong subscribers to a huge amount of debt. I'll leave all that out and just focus on Eve. I think that if Eve could become a much more dynamic and living universe. So that to me has always been sort of the end goal. Even now, 23 years later, it still feels programmed. There are aspects of it that feel programmed. It feels like a video game in many instances, especially in certain types of PvP, in giant fleet fights. There's still tie-dye. There's still a lot of aspects of Eve that are absolutely gorgeous, and huge amounts of progress have been made on visuals and other things. But it still in many ways feels like a game. And I think that if AI could soften those edges and round those off and maybe solve the problem of tie-dye, solve some of those instances where it feels like a game and maybe turns that more into more dynamic and organic experience that feels more alive, and that it feels even more like a real universe that you're experiencing from an oral standpoint, from an audio standpoint, from a visual life, bringing life to the universe, making it feel more like a very immersive science fiction experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the ultimate goal. When it feels like you are inhabiting the life of of your capsuleer when you're online. I think that there are many ways in which I think AI could be extremely beneficial in helping that happen, and I think that's the end goal, really.
Yeah, I agree that if done well, it could do a lot of great things for the game, whether it's better onboarding of new players and then handing them off to actual corporations made out of, real players.
Real people, right?
Yeah, real people, to making NPCs maybe not as aggressive as those NPCs that went for the
right. But imagine being able to talk to your agent. Imagine
truly have a conversation.
Truly have a conversation with your agent. And maybe the agents, each agent comes with a dramatic story arc. And you get immersed in that. Right. It remembers you. It remembers that you helped it out once before. Hey, we worked together 6 months ago, and I've got another opportunity for you. Or, I know you lost your ship the last time. I think I can make it up to you this. I mean, I don't know. There's just so much storytelling potential in that, right?
More alive, more
Yeah,
immersive.
that's what I mean. More immersive, more dynamic, more like a real experience.
Yeah. And then there's also for, other players that do either mining, trading, follow the markets and whatnot. You spoke about some of the immense amount of data that's pouring out of Eve. If there was a way for that data to be crunched more effectively, more efficiently, more informatively than what Fenris, geez, I keep saying CCP, Fenris puts out in the Eve economic reports. I think that would be helpful, and it would also be helpful for Fenris to better understand its economy and the impact of whatever changes they want to bring forward to the economy of Eve. There's also the bots and automation.
Yeah, it could definitely help. Yeah, I agree.
Help Fenris with that. And make the game more alive for the players, and because ultimately, those are the ones that are keeping the game alive, right? It's the actual, it's the players. Yes. Anything that is detrimental to groups of players, the player base as a whole, not necessarily individually.
Imagine if there's, and I run into this all the time, where there's 15 Brutix navies or exec navy issues, and essentially there's players who just bring those around, and they run things, and they just keep going up and down the line of systems, and they do it all day. Mm-hmm. And they're just min-maxing it. There's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, you'd need 25 or 40 people in order to really seriously impede that. What if there was a dynamic resolution to that wouldn't necessarily end in their getting banned necessarily if they're not breaking the EULA, if they're not breaking the TOS or something. That's a whole different issue. But if they're just legitimately running alts, 15-man alt fleets, I mean, that's not actually against the rules of the game. But what if the AI identified that and made it dynamically happen, that it wasn't such a great solution after all, I think
it reacted to that when it saw that.
Right. It's like, this site is down today, and only 3 people can go in at a time. I'm sorry to inform you that, local insurgencies have caused a problem with this site. We're only allowing 3 ships in at a time. I don't know. I think there's subtle ways that AI could be, and that's what I meant earlier when I meant by manipulating the system to the benefit of everyone, that obviously this isn't great for the game, this person doing this. Maybe we take a more active role in trying to mitigate that somewhat, Mm-hmm. But I think it's just one aspect of a multitude of things that it could be doing. I certainly think the jury's still out on that. The negative side of it is easy to figure out. I mean, maybe people just become uninterested in the type of experience that we're offering. I think that's potentially a problem. If content becomes so persuasive that there's nothing special about EVE Online anymore, maybe it just doesn't become something that people seek out. I think that's probably the bottom of the barrel horrible outcome. Yeah, I would not want to see.
Hopefully we won't get there, but I guess only the future will tell. At this point, we're still in the infancy of it, and putting aside the regulations and the guidelines and the guardrails that as a whole the industry and our governments need to put around AI, the data centers, the frenzy to create more, bigger, the impact that it has on the economy, on memory, the cost of memory for PCs, the cost of GPUs. So putting aside that, and let's hope that government figures out and has the ball to do its job and regulate that in a fashion that makes it reasonable.
I hope so.
In terms of applying AI, there's a lot of potential. Yes, the jury is still out on what that will be, but I think we can't just like you don't judge someone by the errors that they make, but by the, what's the quote again? By the, their best qualities or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
No.
AI as well. It's a tool, and the tool can be used positively, negatively. I can use a hatchet to cut down wood and build myself, a house way back when, in the days of the pioneers and whatnot.
Right.
But you can also use it as a weapon. To defend yourself or to attack. I mean, AI is, I think, similar. And as much as there are laws against, or to put in place to guide the use of certain technologies or weapons or whatnot, there should be something similar for.
Should be. Yeah. We know for a fact that any new technology is going to have a bad actor associated with it eventually. And we need to protect ourselves from those bad. You and I talked earlier about the nuclear issue, and we've set up systems to protect us from bad actors in that. I think that the nuclear power has a lot of. It's not a perfect metaphor for AI, but it has a lot of similar types of bad outcomes. And we've done a lot to protect ourselves from proliferation and bad actors, getting a hold of nuclear weapons. And so far, it's served us well, for 80 years. So
Similar
needs to happen.
Yeah, for power generation through nuclear. I mean, there's been some issues, 3 Mile, Chernobyl, and whatnot.
Sure, right.
But it has its pros and cons. And my only sort of fear is that for some reason we seem to be running faster and faster without really thinking this through. So hopefully we'll do that, and hopefully Fenris will do that as it applies its learning and what it comes from working with Google DeepMind in a fashion and in a way that
benefits
helps.
The game.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes us all better, makes the game better, makes the game more enjoyable.
Yep.
Let's just keep our fingers crossed that that's the outcome that actually happened.
That's what we hope for.
It'll probably be a lot messier than that. And I'm sure there'll be some mistakes along the way, but maybe we can help mitigate some of those too, with by using AI to ask it ahead of time. I don't know. I certainly think that it has its benefits. I think that for me, there's definitely lines that I've been adamant about in my own use of it. And I think that everybody has to come to that understanding of how they're going to, whether they can. I mean, not everyone has to deal with it on a daily basis. My father has no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about it. And, I think there's probably a lot of people who are in the same boat. They probably don't even realize that they're using it or that it's part of their lives. And then there's others like us who have to use it in their business, in their day-to-day, making of money.
Job. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And then there's the people out there who are just playing with it on the weekends, or one interesting thing. I went through a thing where my wife found some really old photos that were horribly degraded, and my father sent me a photo of his mom and dad when they first met, and it was a really bad photo. And I spent almost an entire weekend working with that photo, and I ended up with something. A lot of really bad work went into it, but also a lot of really good work, and I learned a lot. And I did use Firefly and Claude, and it helped me create something absolutely gorgeous. And my father was very happy. And, I'm not going to sell that image, or I'm not going to make a profit off of it. I just did it to make my dad happy. And he finally got to see a real color photo of his mother and father, who when they met. And you know what? It's awesome.
Fantastic.
And so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to continue to believe that was a good use of my weekend. And I know that maybe some trees died, or a few lakes dried up from me doing that. But I don't know. I can't stop that from happening. So I think we're all in this same boat together, and how we deal with it has got to be a population decision. It's got to be a mass decision on how we're going to
Societal
move forward.
decision, yeah.
Right. It's got to be done that way.
Yeah, and it's not because currently, the way that electricity is generated is detrimental to the environment. I mean, that's not the case everywhere.
Right.
Here in Canada, in my part of Canada, Quebec, we have a lot of hydro power, energy that's generating electricity.
Right.
And a lot less polluting than other means of doing that.
Yep.
Through coal and natural gas and whatnot. So I mean, I think those are two separate issues, and it's not because currently AI is being used this way and being powered that way that it makes AI a bad actor.
No, as a matter of fact, I have a theory about this, but I think we probably talked a lot. This is an off the kind of topic. I have a theory that, perhaps there's an outcome here where the pressures on our current structures might be enough to actually force us to do something about our power. We've had the ability to fix our power needs for a very long time, and we're just lazy and
tape it.
Yeah, we'll push it, kick the can down the road, right?
Yeah,
and maybe now, in order to do this, we'll actually take some action about stopping and not kicking that can down the road again. And maybe this will be the impetus to force us to do it. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Humans are not great at that, but
there's a brighter future, folks. There's a brighter future out there.
There is a potential of one. Yes. Whether we grab a hold of it, that's always been the question. whether we're around 25,000 years from now and get to actually live, Eve, for real, who knows? But this has been a great conversation, I think. Any last words?
Very interesting. I'm just curious for the future. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I do have my worries, and we'll see how Fenris plays it out when it comes to Eve and leveraging AI within Eve. For the other stuff with AI, unfortunately, it's difficult to sort of know where this is going. But I'm hopeful that as a human race, we will figure a way of making it work for the benefit of the most. It's not always the case, but you got to hope for better in order to move forward, I think.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, let us know. Comments are always welcome. Shoot us a DM, leave a comment on the podcast. Send us a message. We're easily accessible. All of our links will be in the description. And I hope that everyone enjoyed this conversation. There's so much more to talk about. We could go in even deeper. I'm sure that actually this will be a topic that will pop up again in the future. If you have anything specific you would like to ask us about our opinions, feel free to ask. And I know Crazy would spend time with you, so would I. And until then, fly safe.
Fly safe and be nice to Aura.
Yeah, and enjoy the song, whatever that might be.
There's trouble in the universe of New Eden. Empires clash, pirates strike. And when the darkness spreads across the stars, there is only one answer. Cassian Drake.
Gates of fire and steel, in the void where fate is real. Warning sirens cut the night. He's already in the fight. His shadow moves across the stars. Damage that matches his battle scars. When the jump drive starts to wake, every outlaw starts to shake. Engines burning, shields awake. One last jump is all it takes. Lines are drawn.
Get my Drake ready to go, Scotty.
He's a ghost in low-sec space, still resolve behind his face. Every system, every gate, knows the legend, knows the fate. When the darkness starts to rise, reflected in his visor,